Shopify grows with your business no matter how far or big you grow. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Shopify is there to help you grow. Whether you're selling your fans' next favorite shirt or an exclusive piece of podcast merch, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to grow your business no matter what stage you're in.
Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. As always, my mission is to help you become a better runner, and to do that to the best of my ability, we're taking a little break from new episodes of the podcast for some much-needed recovery and to work on fresh episodes coming soon. In the meantime, I'm sharing one of the most popular episodes in our catalog in case you missed it or if you need to hear it again. Enjoy. Jumping, sneezing, coughing, running. If you do any of those things and your pelvic floor isn't up to the task, you're going to leak. We tend to think of this as an issue that's a little embarrassing or only happens to the people in Depends commercials. We certainly don't want to talk about this, let alone listen to a whole podcast about it. But the truth is that 1 in 4 American women suffer from some kind of pelvic floor disorder, according to the National Institutes of Health. That's 25% of us, and yes, that number goes up as we get older. But we don't talk about it, let alone do anything to fix it. And this is not just a female phenomenon. Men have pelvic floors too, and they can also have issues. The guys certainly aren't talking about it. Because leaking or incontinence is something that feels private, messy, and embarrassing. We just wish it would go away. I mean, who wants to say to their running buddies, oh yeah, I went on my 5-mile run, my shorts were soaked in the first half mile, but hey, that's life after a certain age, right? Some people are so embarrassed, ashamed, and downright fearful of having an accident that they choose to quit running altogether. I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. I've brought on pelvic floor specialist and international coach Baz Moffat. You'll learn why pelvic floor issues happen and increase as we age, especially when we run, what the signs are of a more serious problem, and most importantly, the surprising way to strengthen the muscles to prevent leaks and incontinence in the first place. And it's not Kegels. Baz is a former member of the rowing team for Great Britain, and she is a prominent voice in the women's health movement. She is a co-founder of the Well HQ, whose mission is to challenge the status quo for women in health, fitness, and sport. This is a powerful conversation for anyone who has a pelvis, and unless you're like Baz and study this for a living, I promise you will learn something brand new that you can apply today. The other thing that I want to say is that this topic doesn't have to all be doom and gloom. Baz has several great tips on making pelvic health more normalized and, dare I say it, fun. Be sure to stay tuned all the way to the end of the episode for the Mental Strength Minute to fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. And now here's my conversation with Baz Moffat. Welcome to The Planted Runner, Baz.
Thank you very much for having me.
I had a request to have you on the show. As a female runner, we have some unique issues that can happen. And so today I really wanted to talk to you all about the pelvic floor and how it relates to running, what's going on down there, and what are some issues that we encounter as female runners.
Yeah, perfect. I will talk to people about pelvic floor all day long, so I'm delighted to be here today.
Yeah, well, let's first talk about exactly what it is. What is the pelvic floor? And I mean, men have pelvises too, right?
Yeah, men have pelvises, men have pelvic floors. We all have pelvic floors. This isn't a unique part of a woman's body. It's a group of muscles and ligaments, and it's kind of like a hammock, if you like. So it attaches to your pubic bone at the front of your pelvis and your coccyx at the back, and and it kind of like sits underneath the pelvis. And the hammock's a good way of understanding it, because if you think it needs to be like not too tight, not too strong, not too loose, not too flexible. And so to be able to hold the strength, hold the weight of everything that is above it, it needs to have the same level of conditioning as every other part of our body. Now, you mentioned men have the pelvic floor and it does exactly the same job, but because men don't have children, and because men don't have a vagina, and because men don't go through menopause, it means that their prevalence of the issues that they experience are far less than within women.
Okay. So, but this, pelvic floor issues are not just happening to women who've had children. I've had 2 babies, and thankfully everything so far, knock on wood, is okay down there. But I know that runners, whether they've had kids or not, have some issues, especially as we creep towards menopause.
100%. And I think that you have permission societally or internally to have pelvic floor issues if you've had children, because you're like, well, I've put on loads of weight and and a baby's come out of my vagina. So of course there may well be issues down there. But there are many women that have not had children yet or ever who experience these issues as well. And they need to be cared for and supported with as much resources as those that have had children.
Right. Because, anytime we talk about something that, is a little private, we get, we start blushing, we start giggling. Nobody really wants to talk about it. But for women who want to be active runners in their 40s, 50s, 60s, beyond, whatever, this is a real issue. So can you talk about some of the problems that happen, especially on a run?
Yeah, I think that the 3 main problems, there are quite a few, but the 3 main are the urinary stress incontinence, so leaking, the sneezy wee, the leaking when there is an increase in pressure from above, from laughing, coughing, sneezing, and a little bit of wee comes out when you don't want it to, or because of impact or taking off. So you might find as a runner that you're absolutely fine running uphill, but if you're trying to sprint downhill, then actually, and it's towards the end of a run, then you might experience urinary leakage. And that is because your pelvic floor isn't working with your body and can't resist the pressure from pounding down a mountain or a hill, that you're experiencing. So that's one that's leaking because of force going through your system. You then have what's called urge incontinence, and that is when you are going about your daily business, and you definitely don't need the toilet. There's no signals coming to you that you need the toilet. But you're either driving home or walking home or running home, and you get your key out and you put it in the door, and you're like, oh, I can't hold on anymore. And that is the trigger for your pelvic floor to relax should be sitting down on a toilet. So you should sit down on the loo and your pelvic floor should relax so that you can empty your bowels and bladder. But with urge incontinence, it's happening before you've even done that. So it happens when you take the key out the door. Some people get it when they get into a shower. They might be like, oh, I'm doing a wee and I don't really want to. They're in the shower. It might be, it can also be hormonal. It can be at different stages in your period, just before your period starts. It might be your bowels. It might be an irresistible urge to empty your bowel, or caffeine might trigger it. You might say, 15 minutes after having a cup of coffee, I have this irresistible urge to go to the toilet. So that urge incontinence, and that can be bowels or wind or bladders, can be, there's nothing in the moment, there's nothing you can do about that. And that can be a real big mental issue. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing, unrelated to leaking, is an issue called prolapse. And whenever I say that word, people wince and go, please don't talk to me about prolapse. It sounds awful, because I think we all have this image of an old lady with with things kind of falling out.
Yes.
There are many levels of prolapse. That is the worst level, the one I've just described. And it's when your vaginal wall should have the strength to hold up the essential organs that are above it, which is your bladder, your bowel, and your uterus, which sits within your pelvis. Now, sometimes the prevalence rates are highest postnatally and highest during menopause, when that vagina just isn't strong enough to hold it. And it might be that you get this dull ache in your pelvis, and it might be a kind of like, but that might just be triggered. You might only feel that at the end of the day, and then after a good night's sleep, you're absolutely fine. And that's kind of like an underlying sort of like low level condition. But then over time, if you don't do anything about it, then that vagina kind of gets a bit weaker and more, and you start to experience a few more issues. But it just feels like your body's not like how it should be, and it might, and instead of getting that endorphin high from doing your exercise, your HIIT workouts, your CrossFit, or your running, you're like, I just have this dragging feeling.
Yeah.
And women describe it as a dragging, everyone describes it in very similar terms. And that's that's the most, and we see that, not many, but there are quite a few athletes that experience that because of the load they're putting through their system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mental part about it is something we probably don't talk about enough. If you've had leakage, let's say, on a run, you're going to be scared that that's going to happen again, and you're going to be thinking about that. You're going to be nervous about it, and it's probably more likely to happen again because you're so caught up in your head. And the other side of it is, I don't want to have an accident while I'm running, so I'm not going to drink anything, which is a big no-no for runners who are going any kind of long distance, especially in the heat. So, is that a viable solution? Just, really lowering your fluid intake?
It's not how our bodies work. It's not like, it's not what goes in comes out. It kind of, it's like weight loss, isn't it? It's just not as simple as calorie balance for weight loss. And it's not as simple as what goes in comes out. But I know that many women will self-manage. And that is a problem with it being, that's why I do my work. Because if this conversation isn't out in the open, if personal trainers and physios and fitness instructors are not able to support women, they'll self-manage, and they'll self-manage by not drinking or popping in a pad or kind of avoiding the workouts or just ignoring it. So hydration is really, it's huge. Like the evidence base around, the effects of dehydration on your performance and on your health are really well established. I think that what's really important for me is that women have really good bladder and bowel health, so that we're going to the toilet regularly throughout the day. We don't need to overly hydrate. We just need to drink. We need to drink normal amounts of fluid that works for us. We need to have a kind of a hay coloured urine that comes out. We need to be emptying our bowels every day. We shouldn't have to be force our bowel movements. And if we have healthy bladders and healthy bowels and we're drinking well, then the next thing is to kind of, put the pelvic floor exercises on top of that. But no one, I fundamentally believe that everyone can do whatever she wants to do. But if you've had a traumatic birth experience, or you've had a really big baby, or you've had any kind of trauma in your life, then your pelvic floor needs some TLC, but it's the foundations of our body. It's like repairing your roof. It's like in your house, like no one notices that. They'll notice your new sofa, or they'll notice the new picture that you've brought, and that's like your new bit of kit or your new trainers. They notice that, but no one notices apart from you. And that's why I think, it's not something that people shout about.
Yeah, that's probably why we don't talk about it, because we're embarrassed if this happens to us, even though it's not our fault. So we'll talk about ways to fix the problem in just a minute. But I want to first talk about, how do we know we're actually having an issue? When is the time to do something about it? Because, the urgency to go, that can happen, if you're nervous, you're about to go on stage and have a talk, and, you get nervous and you feel like you have to pee even though you haven't, or you have race nerves before a race and you've already gone to the porta potty 5 times. There's nothing in there. It's just nerves. So how do we know if there's a deeper issue?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So I think that, 5 years ago when I did my training, it was very black and white. It's like, if your pelvic floor needs to keep you dry. If you ever leak, that's a problem. I think the thinking has evolved over the last few years, which is absolutely brilliant. And even if you've got a brilliant functioning pelvic floor, it gets tired like the rest of your body. So if your pelvic floor, if your body is able to tolerate your training most of the time, but in that last sprint, I've never ran a marathon and I can't imagine ever sprinting to the finish line. But if that last sprint towards the finish line, you leak a bit and that's it, you're all right. Like you're just a wee bit tired. If you are leaking at the start of your runs, or if you're leaking regularly, then that is something that you or you really enjoy a certain type of training and your pelvic floor can't cope with that level of intensity, then that is when you need to start. That is a bit of an issue. When it becomes sort of your bowel urges, I think that if it's, a sign of your period coming, then that's just naturally happening to you. But if it's affecting your running to a extent of every time if you go for morning runs, then actually 20 minutes in, all you can think about is, I need the toilet, I need the toilet, I need the toilet. You're not going to get that flow state from your run that we're all after. So I think it's kind of, there are some hard and fast rules, but it's more like, how much headspace is this taking up, and how much are you doing to self-manage it? And so I think it's look at it in that way. If you're avoiding things or changing what you wear, or changing where you go, or changing what you eat and drink in an unhealthy way, and that's holding a mirror up to ourselves and having an honest conversation with ourselves, isn't it? Which which is quite hard to do as well. But I think just being really genuinely honest with yourself about what is the impact of this is having.
We'll be back with more right after the break. This September, join me and a small group of runners for an incredible running vacation here in Asheville, North Carolina. We're staying in deluxe riverfront cabins where we can run right out our doors. We'll feast on chef-catered plant-based meals, enjoy classes and coaching, and so much more. To learn all about the cool things we've got planned, go to theplanetrunner.com/retreat. Spaces are very limited, so sign up today. My favorite way to get all my stinky running clothes clean is with Earth Breeze. Earth Breeze Eco Sheet look just like a dryer sheet, but it's ultra concentrated laundry detergent. It eliminates stains and odors while being kind to the planet and your skin. No more ugly, heavy plastic laundry jugs filled with messy blue goo, which we all know is mostly water. Earth Breeze comes in a lightweight cardboard envelope that hardly takes up any space in your laundry room. And they offer flexible subscriptions delivered right to your door for free. If you decide to go back to your old stuff for some reason, you'll get a full refund on your Earth Breeze purchase, no questions asked. My clothes are clean, they smell fresh, and I never have to feel guilty dragging home the big orange jug from the store again. Right now, you can receive 40% off Earth Breeze just by going to earthbreeze.com/plantedrunner. That's earthbreeze.com/plantedrunner to cut out single-use plastic in your laundry room and the landfill. That's 40% off your subscription at earthbreeze.com/plantedrunner.
Sports stars. They're like superheroes.
But they're actually real.
Which is why we've made a podcast about them. You see,
they've all got a story.
But too many of these stories were cut short.
Kobe Bryant,
Payne Stewart,
Flojo,
Phil Hughes,
Justin Fashanu.
We're writing episodes about all of them.
And sadly, many more.
Death of a Sports Star, a new series from Crowd Network.
Welcome back to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. Yeah, this is great that you say this because, running in general, long distance running in general can cause all sorts of GI problems that have nothing to do with your pelvic floor or anything like that. It's just, the blood gets moved away from the digestion to go to your muscles and to go to cooling you down. So there are lots of GI issues. There's lots of bathroom issues that happen to runners that aren't necessarily due to some kind of, weakness in the pelvis. So it's really good to kind of figure out which problem you're having, because it could be something to do with diet.
It could, and I think there won't be one fix.
Right.
So, and there won't be something that fixes all of that. But pelvic floor could be part of that solution. Mm-hmm. And I think that what you are eating, the intensity of the gels you're having, we know that as we age, we're much more sensitive to caffeine and sugar. Now, you guys need that if you're doing your endurance training, but can you keep your energy up? Can you just eat brilliantly and use those gels less? Do you know what I mean? And it's that kind of it's really exploring all the different things that you're doing, not outside of the culture of your sport. And that is challenging because we know that, there's a really fixed culture about like whether that's training programs or eating protocols or drinking protocols or hydration strategies. None of that research has been done on midlife women. So it's like, we're applying that knowledge, which is just ingrained in our system to us. But it's like, okay, like, what is this working for me? And can I experiment with something that I might need to be able to do differently?
Absolutely. 100%. That is such an important message because, even I, as a coach, I tell my runners how much to eat, how much to drink, for the most part, but the most important thing is not what the science says, is what your body can handle and what works for your body. So super, super important. Let's go into how do we fix this problem? We're runners. We want to fix the problem. If it's, we're not strong enough. How do we get stronger? Everybody's heard of Kegels or Kegels. I don't even know what the best pronunciation is. Is that what we should be doing? Just sitting here squeezing?
No, relax. Let go. Okay. Everyone let go of their pelvic floors. So that, again, that's part of the solution. So we need to, like, everyone should have a pelvic floor that can lift for 10 seconds and hold that lift for 10 seconds. So you could just say, do your pelvic floor exercises, but we know that no one knows how to do their pelvic floor exercises. So we need to be doing them right. And I can talk you through that now if that's what you want to be doing. Yeah. And then there's ways of integrating that pelvic floor into your core workouts, into your strength and conditioning. I think it was, again, sort of 10 years ago when Mr. Kegel came on, or however, it was in the 70s, I think he was around, like he introduced his Kegel exercise, absolutely brilliant. But we now know that's the start of a continuum. That's the start, it's like, the Kegel is like your rehab physio exercise that that's an isolated exercise. You would never expect to do any other isolation work with your hamstring or your shoulders or your quads, and then that be integrated into your movement patterns. And so what we need to be doing is start with the isolation so we can feel it and lift it and drop it and relax it and put the pressure on. But then we need to integrate it into whatever else our body is doing. And that's the bit that really is fairly revolutionary in the world of pelvic floor work not with the people that know what they're doing and define themselves by this, but in the rest of the world, it feels like the Kegel is it.
Yeah. So most of the people who are listening to it are running right now, and should they be like squeezing right now? Okay, let go.
No. So let go of your pelvic floor, because the pelvic floor is a dynamic muscle, right? It's like you can't squeeze your quad whilst you're on a run. Like the quad has to work with you. The pelvic floor has to work with you. Now, if you are doing a deadlift or a squat or a high pull in the gym, yes, you can lift your pelvic floor during that exercise. And that's a brilliant thing to do to add extra stability to your core. But not on a run. Like it needs to be moving with your breath. It should be moving, and you're not even conscious of it really. It should just be working with you. So no, let go of your pelvic floor if you're running right now.
Okay. So let's say we are in the gym and we want to work on this. What should we be doing? Talk us through how to do it.
Right. So let's say you've never done this before. Probably the easiest place to start is in lying. But if you're in a gym and you want to sit on a bench or you want to start in standing, then that's absolutely fine. So let's say that me and you, we're both in sitting. So we're in sitting. We're going to kind of perch on our sit bones. So we're neutral pelvis. So we're not falling back or we're not forward. And we're kind of feeling our sit bones. And that's the same as if you're in standing. Find that neutral pelvic position. And then I want everyone to let go of their tummy, which feels really weird. And that doesn't mean like you just collapse your whole system. It just means that you just you're not gripping or holding in your tummy, because we need that part of us to be able to move. And then what I want you to do is, with that lovely relaxed tummy, is to imagine that you're picking up a bean with your back passage, which feels weird. And I teach this to 300 teenage girls and I lose the room every time I do it. But this is how we need to do it. We're going to pick up a bean just with the back passage for now, and then relax and let go and drop. So just pick up the bean and relax, let go and drop. And then pick up the bean and relax, let go and drop. Now your face shouldn't be squeezing, your tummy shouldn't be coming on, your glutes shouldn't be firing. And that's what I mean about it being quite physio-like. It's like just just isolate, which means you have to really back off the work if it's the first time you've ever done this. So we've got the back passage, and there's a load of brilliant pelvic floor muscle around your back passage. And then we're going to move towards the front. So kind of like the where your vagina is. I want you to pick up a bean with your vagina and relax, drop and let go. And I want you to pick up a bean with your vagina and relax, drop and let go. Right, 2 more stages. We're going to do both, back and front, drop, let go, back and front, drop and let go. The dropping is really important. That's your relaxation. The next bit is back and front, and then draw up your vagina towards your belly button inside, and then relax, drop and let go. And it's literally just like, and it might just be, whoa, it's just gone. Over time, you want to have a bit more control on that, but at the start, we just let it all go. And you might have to push a little bit to actually get that full relaxation. Let's do that 2 more times. We're going to go back and front and draw up inside towards your belly button and relax, drop and let go. And then 1 more, back and front, draw up inside and relax, drop and let go. And that's it.
Okay.
And so we held it there for about 2 seconds, and the idea is that you hold it at the top you attempt to get to 10 seconds if you can.
And if we're up to 10 seconds, we're good. But
that's a really good sign. That's a really good sign that your pelvic floor is functioning well. Yeah.
Okay. And so if we get nice and strong and this works, that means we shouldn't have any more problems on the run. Is this like a home run exercise?
No, I mean, I think, that's if you are leaking on your run because you have a weak pelvic floor and you've sorted out then yes. But there might be other reasons. Like it might not be your pelvic floor might actually be too tight. It might be sitting too high in your pelvis, and actually you need to work on the relaxation and letting go. So in the UK, we have women's health physiotherapists. I don't know what they're called in the States. They might be like female therapists, but they're physio. They're physio. They absolutely exist because you've got some brilliant ones over there. But they're normal physiotherapists that are trained in pelvic health. And I just think your bar should be so low to going and getting support and help from them, because they can do really specific examinations. They can teach you how to do it with the cues and the visualizations that are going to work for you, and give you your own specific program. Because what I just described there works for many women, but like some of us just need different ways to imagine it.
Okay. So what do we do in the meantime? So let's say we have some issues. We're starting our strength training program, and, this doesn't happen overnight. So what are some things that we can do while we're training, while we're on the run, that can, keep us dry and clean?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are, there's, the period pants are like brilliant to kind of like help absorb what's coming out. I think they're much more environmentally friendly than using the pads, and they don't clog up the sewage systems and all that kind of stuff. So I think that, period pants are a really good way of absorbing things. I think that over the next few years, 3 to 4 years, we'll all start to wear sort of like internal devices. They're called pessaries, and they've been used medically to support women who have prolapse symptoms. But I think what's going to be happening is that they're going to be used in sport, and they're going to be used as a preventative measure. And they're not like a tampon, but that's the best way of describing it. Some of them look like a tampon. They come in all different shapes and sizes. They're generally made of like medical grade silicone, and they kind of sit inside your vagina. I think women that use menstrual cups, they're are very used to kind of like inserting those types of things into your vagina, that they provide support for your bladder neck or your vaginal wall, and they can also prevent leaking. I think you can buy them off the shelf. You can buy them off the shelf. I think I would do it via a women's health physio who really understands sport and understands how important that is to you, and they can make a really good, much better assessment as to what type of pessary will work for you.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that until we spoke about it, and I went and looked it up, and I was like, that is really, really fascinating. I had never heard of it, and why don't more people know about this? Because it seems like that's really simple.
It is really simple, but I think people, it is simple, but women haven't trained hard for very long. And I know that sounds weird because we all are, but actually we're only really seeing the first cohort of 50, 60-year-olds that have trained their whole life come through. Like, if you look at my mum's in her 70s, there were very few, there's no women of her generation that would have gone to the gym, gone running. And so really, we're only looking at 50-year-olds now. Like, they're the first cohort that have come through. We don't really understand what the impact has been of training so hard and lifting weights and all that, and training to a high athletic level. And we're only just starting to understand that. So this is really an emerging space and a really innovative space where we need, like, the options we have they're much better than they were, but that's why this pessary is come from the medical profession, where really old ladies like need a lot of help with their with their vaginal support. But we're like, actually, what happens if we give it to CrossFitters? Does that help them? Does that prevent the damage that may well be caused going forward? So I think it's a really exciting space.
Yeah, that is really, really fascinating. A thought just popped into my head. What if it's like an orthotic? It's like something that helps, but because we rely on it, our own muscles get weaker. Maybe. I don't know.
I think that the research, the ones that I'm working with, a couple of products in the UK, and they show that actually that it's a bit of both. Like, it's kind of like it can actually help because it's internal. Like, your pelvic floor is actually working with it. I think to be quite honest, we need to keep women moving and we need to keep women active. And if that's going to help, then let's crack on and that's going to help them, because that is people who love exercise will always do anything, but that you've got this whole cohort of people whose barriers to exercise are really low. And if they have a fear of leaking, or they actually are leaking, then they're going to stop running and they're going to stop exercising. So, like, if these little fixes can really help and support them, then let's use them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So far we've talked about, leaking and the urge to go, but we haven't talked about things that are a little bit more serious, like pain, pelvic pain, so what could be going on there when it just physically hurts to run?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not medically trained and I wouldn't want to kind of guess at that, but I think that pain or bleeding in any part of your body is not okay. And I always say, right, let's take that out of the pelvis. So if you had pain in your hamstring, if you had a cut on your head that wouldn't stop bleeding, you'd go and get help. And I think because it's in a private, intimate, embarrassing part of our body, we often cover this stuff up, but we need to kind of like make sure that we're not covering that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So where do we go from here? So just for regular runners, should we do our exercises once a week, twice a week, do them with our strength training? Every day. Oh,
every day. But that's why it needs, so one set of 10, the exercises I've just gone through, one set of 10 every day, whether you have issues or do not have issues, then just because you've got your woman with a pelvic floor and it needs a bit of care, looking after. And then if you are experiencing issues, you need to be doing that 2 to 3 times a day. If nothing happens if there is zero, you notice nothing after probably like 3 to 4 weeks, you then need to go and ask someone for a bit of help. It generally takes people 7 years. So if you see someone sooner than 7 years, you're doing really well. Yeah. I would say 3 to 4 weeks, but you need to go and find someone with a bit more expertise and give you that support. And it's not, for me, that's not a luxury. Like, our health is so important, and especially with something like running, which is addictive, but in a good way. It's something that people rely, it can be bad, but like generally it's a really healthy endeavor, and it's so important to women socially and mentally, and yes, physically, but I think that social and mental piece is key. Like,
sure,
you need to protect your body's ability to run. You need to do everything within your power to keep you running. And I think that pelvic floor piece is a key part of that.
Yeah. So you're saying it takes 7 years for women to go get help for this on average? Oh no, that's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully more conversations like this will encourage more people to do that. But, as runners, it's like, oh, great. Here's one more thing we have to do. We already don't do our strength training enough. And now we got to do our pelvic floor exercises. Do you have any tips just from a habit point of view to make this easier, to make this a habit that we do every day?
Yeah, so I think that I've got two ideas. If you're part of a running group, then I think having that accountability to those women within your team and within your squad is really, really great. So often I will say, right, we're going to do a pelvic floor challenge for the next month, and you're all gonna write in the group done when you've done it. You need someone with a bit of motivation to run that group and who's going to be like checking on people. But that's incredible, and you can and you don't all have to be the same age. You can be lots of different types of women in there saying, right, we're going to do our pelvic floor exercises, and you might even want to record a bit of audio at the top which just says, right, I'm going to talk you through 10 of them, and then we're going to do it every day. And there will be people that honestly at 10 o'clock at night are getting ready for bed, and you'll be like, oh, Janet, have you done your pelvic floor exercises? And they're like, oh no, but so and so who's a single mum of 3, and you know how hard her life is, has managed it, so it just kind of gives you that social pressure to do it, and it makes it a bit fun. So I think having a kind of accountability group is a really nice way of doing that, and sharing, but you need a couple of oversharers in that group that will kind of like really kind of like make that fun. And then I think the other to make it a habit, like you need to think. When I was working with lots of new mums, I was like, you're never going to feel, be honest, you are never going to feel like doing your pelvic floor exercises ever. It's not going to be like, oh, I'll do my pelvic floor exercises now. So you need to make it, when you shut that door on your baby and they're asleep, instead of going to tidy up the house and get your tea and get yourself organised, you just go straight into your bedroom and you do them then. And that, for new mums, that kind of worked quite well. But what is the predictable time in your day where you just do it? I think cool downs is a really nice time to do it. Like when you're doing your breath work, or you're doing your, restorative kind of work, it's just like, okay, I'm just going to do my pelvic floor exercise at the same time, because it's not seen as an extra thing. It's actually a really lovely thing to check in with your body and feel like, get that tension out of your breath and kind of just relax and let go. So I think that incorporating it into something else you're doing is also very helpful.
I love that idea. I talk about that a lot. It's called habit stacking. So when you're already doing something, if that is a good habit, you add on to it. So we could do our pelvic floor exercises while we're brushing our teeth, right? That could be our perfect time. It's just something that we're always doing. You just add it on top. I think that's a great idea. Well, and I also love the idea of humor, because, this is sort of a, embarrassing or yucky kind of conversation. But if we are lighthearted and silly about it, it kind of takes that away. And, I would love to say, oh, there's nothing to be embarrassed about, but it does feel embarrassing. That's normal to feel that way. But if we all talk about it more, I think it takes the sting out of it a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think it's okay to make fun of it, but also do something about it. Yes. I think what's happening at the minute, the conversation is we laugh about the wee tree and we laugh about the sneezy wees, but that's not enough. Like, we need to then say, oh, we need to do something about it. But yeah, humor just breaks down the barriers and makes everyone a lot more comfortable. Yes.
Well, it's fabulous to know that this is not something we have to live with. There are solutions and there's help. So I think that is a perfect place to wrap this up. So Baz, tell everybody where listeners can connect with you.
Yeah, we're from the Well HQ, so it's thewell-hq.com. And although my passion is pelvic health, and that's what I love doing, we cover all aspects of female athlete health. So we look at menstrual cycles, sports bras, hormonal contraception, all the specific life stages. And we're kind of on a mission to really change the way that we engage with, educate and train girls and women, so that we're taking account all these unique things that happen to us and at the moment is not really catered for or even considered within the world of sport and exercise.
I love it. I love that you're doing this work. We need more of you out there. So I want you to reach far and wide with your message, because it is so needed. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I think a lot of people have learned a lot from this conversation, and hopefully everybody's relaxing their pelvis on the run, but doing it in the gym or on their cool down. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can learn more about Baz at the Well HQ, and we'll have links in the comments below on YouTube and in the podcast show notes. And now it's time for the Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. Today's topic is about passing runners at the end. There's really no better feeling at the end of a long race or group workout than passing people at the end. This means that you ran the race better and smarter than the people you are passing. The victory is even sweeter if these are the people that started the race too fast and paid dearly for their hubris. While you should be hurting at the end of a tough race if you ran to the best of your ability, every runner you pass at the end is like a shot of painkiller that proves that you are a pacing master. If you're not running a race, you can still use this tip as an imagination game on the sidewalk or at the park. Just pretend the pedestrians or even the telephone poles are your unfortunate competitors at the end of your run. They are struggling with exhaustion from their poor choices while you are gliding effortlessly to the finish line. Now, before I get comments about how you should run your own race and not compare yourself to others, remember, this is just a mental exercise that you do in your head. All sports are competitive by definition, even if you're just competing with yourself. And if it helps to have a little fun slaying your imaginary enemies, I say slay away. Thank you for listening to The Planted Runner, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Don't forget that you can win free access to one of my sprint session masterclasses just for writing an Apple Podcast review. So be sure to write yours right after your run today. Reviews are the #1 way to boost this show's reach, and it's a great way to tell me what you'd like to hear next because I read every single one. Have a great run today.
Women's Running Stories, where we explore the intersection between running and life. Because every woman who is committed to a running journey has a story to tell, and this is where you'll find those stories. I am host and producer Cherie Louise Turner. I'm a 53-year-old runner, and together with original music by musician and runner Cormac O'Regan, we bring these inspirational stories to life. Please join us to fuel your adventures.